Hey, what's up everyone? Ben at ProFixer, and today we're going to be talking about how to remove the small parts safely from a Galaxy housing. This will come in handy when doing LGs as well, as a lot of them are similar builds where it's just like this CNC piece of aluminum and everything sits inside, but a lot of it is adhesived in, and so it makes it pretty difficult to pull out. I'm going to show you my tricks on how you can remove these safely and transfer them to the new housing without causing any kind of damage. And as well, everything on my workbench and everything that you see in the video is linked up in the description below. So be sure to check that out as well. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and like this video. Without further ado, let's get started. The most important tool that you can use when doing the whole small part swap from one housing to another is a blue heating mat. I have it linked up in the description below, and you can pick one of these up and they work phenomenally for iPads or really anything. The best thing about it for this particular repair is that it heat soaks the phone. It keeps everything consistently warm, and that way you don't have any cold spots or any kind of super hot spots. And it's the safest way to raise the temperature of a device to make the adhesive a little more malleable and to release from the frame. We set ours to 60 degrees, which has been a pretty good temperature. We had it set to like 50 at one time, 70 at another time, but we always come back to leaving it at 60 because that seems like the all-around best temperature to put the heat mat at. Once you're inside of the Galaxy, I want to show you a couple of things to note on this here. This right here is going to be the wireless charging coil. You do want to be careful with it because this is actually 3 different pieces on the back housing. You have the speaker on the bottom, you have this center plate here with the coil, and it has this little bar on the side, and then you have this top plate here. After you removed all the screws, you can start to peel up on the wireless charging coil, and that will then release the top from the middle from the bottom, making it a little bit easier to pull apart. And what I always do when I pull these out is just using a fingernail. I don't use any kind of pry tools really on these because I don't want to damage any of the motherboard inside, but with the fingernail you can grab the side of the speaker right here and you can actually lift up on it. And let's see, we'll lift it from the bottom. So you can lift up from the bottom and it lifts right out, and the centerpiece then basically falls off. It's not really held in by too much other than the bottom and the top plate. Once that's off, you can pull the top one off, which is about the same process. Just kind of bend up on that a little bit and lift it from the rest of the housing. You can lay those off to the side because we'll need those later. Go ahead and unplug the battery and kind of fold it over just a little bit. And at this next part, you can then start to remove all of the cameras, remove the motherboard, and remove all the other things. I'm going to show you how to do all those steps. What you'll do is you want to remove the front cameras first, which always seems to be the easiest, and make sure that you don't put anything on the lens of the camera. When you lay it down, make sure that you put it with the lens facing up, and put it on a part of the workbench where it's not going to get bumped or hit in any way. Go ahead and unplug all the other ones. There'll be a couple different flex cables depending on the particular model that you have. You do need to remove the SIM card tray as well. And we'll just start going down the whole thing and removing everything as well. To remove these little flex cables, I do use like this little flat-headed screwdriver, and I don't pry. I just basically insert it under the coax and then lift up. And that way you don't pry on the motherboard or anything like that. Kind of bend those up out of the way. And I do want to try to remove the charge port while it's still connected to the motherboard. I do kind of prefer that. So we're going to remove the rest of these screws here. And all these black ones are identical in size, and so you don't necessarily need to keep track of them. As long as you put them back in the right spots, they can go realistically in any order. And that is why they're a different color than the rest, is because they are a different size to kind of color coordinate those. But there are 5 at the bottom. In another video, we had shown you how to remove the headphone jack. Pretty easy process to do. Once you have it unplugged, you can insert a screwdriver and then just bend upwards on the jack itself from inside the headphone jack. So pull that out, set that off to the side, and then you're going to want to remove everything else as well. So what we do is we start at the top and we can lift up on the motherboard. Kind of remove that out of there. And then we can get a flat screwdriver and we can remove the charge port, which does have a little bit of adhesive, but since the phone's super hot, it makes it super easy to pull off. I'm going to pull that away, and then basically you just need to kind of lift up on the charge port a little bit. It's really not that hard of a process to do, pretty easy, and it's going to come up super nicely because everything is pretty warm. Go ahead and place this off to the side, making sure that you place the camera facing up once again. And now these small parts here are really where the main focus comes into play when working with the blue heat mat. You can remove these, and they actually do have insert points, and that's what I wanted to show you on how you can use your flat screwdriver to remove them. If you look at the vibrate motor, you'll actually notice up here at the top that it does have a little bit of an insert point, so you can insert a tool and that you can work it under there, and it will lift out that little vibrate motor very easily. Real no prying or anything like that, just softly insert the screwdriver and it will come up. And then as well, the ear speaker is the same way. It has this little insert point on the one side so that you can insert it. Make sure you get underneath the adhesive and then just gently lift up. And then once that's done, you have a front ear speaker that is perfectly pulled up, and you don't have any separation within the speaker itself, which is nice. Then we're going to go to this here on the side. This is going to be a proximity sensor, and you can easily pull that up. What I like to do is, once again, there's an insert point right here. You can kind of lift up on that, and once the sensor comes out, you can then work back and pull off that little piece of tape there. It did tear, which we can place it off to the side, and we can overlap that just a tiny bit to kind of mimic the sticker once again. And that will help to hold down the proximity sensor for when you put the motherboard in, and it'll hold it all in the right spot. The battery is the one last thing that does take a little bit of force to remove. They're pretty difficult to remove, but what you can do is you can take a little bit of alcohol or a little bit of acetone and drip it in there. I do prefer alcohol, as alcohol does not eat away at the adhesive as much, and it makes it a little bit safer for some of the other components. But what we do is we go ahead and fill in the sides of the battery slot and let it sit for just a second. After it's sat and it's been on the heat mat, and this whole time, if you notice, everything has been done on a hot heat mat, making it super easy to pull out. You're going to get one of these iSesamo tools, which is linked up in the description below as well, and you'll insert that into the side, and then you'll pry up gently on the battery itself. And you don't want to pry really hard, because you don't necessarily need the battery to come out at any super speed. Basically, you just want to lift up, put a little bit of pressure, and slowly underneath, the adhesive will start to pull away. So it's not going to be like this reactionary, you tip it and the battery flips out. Basically, you tip it and hold, and you'll kind of feel the battery loosening. And now at this point, I basically have a super easy to remove battery, which does have a little bit of adhesive still stuck on the back, which you'll want to pull off. And go ahead and place this off to the side, because we've already used all of this already. And what you'll do is just pull the rest of this adhesive off, which is pretty easy to do. If you do have any wrinkles in the back of the battery, you can smooth those out, or just kind of the back of your fingernail to help smooth those down so it fits back in the housing a little bit smoother. And once all these are off, you can then go ahead and put this back into your new housing. As far as inserting everything into the housing, you don't necessarily need to do that on the hot mat, but it would be a good idea on anything that you're removing from the housing to always do that on a heat mat set to 60. If you have adhesive already installed in your new housing, makes it very easy. You can just put the battery in there and everything works fine at that point. But I appreciate y'all watching this particular video. Hopefully this uncovers some of the easier ways to remove some of the small parts from the Galaxy housings. I know it can be pretty difficult, and I've seen a lot of people where they try to pry these out, or they say they're nearly impossible to pull out, or they talk about damaging the vibrate motors or something else on the particular housing. So hopefully you can apply this in your repair shop and start removing these even quicker and safer, and not have to go try to hunt down this 80-cent little vibrate motor, because we all know they're extremely cheap, but can be extremely frustrating if you can't find it or need it in a pinch in a repair because it's been damaged. So always use a heat mat set to 60, gently pry on all the components as they are heat saturated, and it'll be a good time, and it'll be easy to transfer to the next housing. But I appreciate y'all watching this video, and like I mentioned earlier, everything that I have used in this video that you see is linked up in the description below, so feel free to check that out. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. As well, if you like this video, hit the like button. If not, the other button seems to work okay too. But I appreciate y'all watching, and I'll catch you on the next video.